Now it is 2:02, so let's get started. Again, I am Kyle. I'm your host today for our High Five PriceLabs Masterclass. Today, our focus is going to be on getting your base price and getting your minimum price in line. Once again, I want to give a shout out to Miss Karishma, who's here. She'll be helping answer questions. She's in charge of all of our education. And if you have any feedback later on, please give that to us as well. Wanting to make this as best as possible for you guys, and make sure that you get as much as possible out of these quick hit sessions with us. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get going. All right. So I've got a couple of different use cases for us today. And first thing I want to do, I want to talk about our minimum pricing. Your minimum price is going to be what you want to be that bare minimum that's going to come out of PriceLabs. One caveat with that is once it leaves PriceLabs, if it goes to Airbnb, it goes to your property management system. If you have a rule set up outside of PriceLabs, it can take you below your minimum. So we do always suggest put your pricing rules and your minimum stay rules in PriceLabs. Just a little bit of a reminder from yesterday. I want us to go in and do a couple of different things with our minimums and our base prices. The first one I want to do is let's take a brand new property and let's just go in and figure this out. So this use case is going to be, hey, I just signed a new property and I need to bring it into PriceLabs. Doesn't have any historical information, doesn't have anything. It's just a brand new property. So we're going to go in here. I've connected it in theory. This property is going to be in Miami, and it is a 1-bedroom that is close to the ocean for us. As you can see, I've already got a base price in here, but we're going to pretend like I don't have one in there yet. So first thing to do, we're coming in, we're helping me choose a base price. This tool is very, very useful for you, and you can play around with it a little bit and really define this well. So the first thing to notice, we've got a map of the properties that are similarly close to us. We've got our market base price here of 212. If this is a brand new, if this is a listing that has rates already, you'll see another box over here that says imported. You will also eventually see a box right here that says recommended as well. So that is going to be where we want to key in on when we come into our base price help. Just so you get a little bit of understanding of the functionality, this property category is very, very beneficial, and it moves your rates to a different percentile of the market. So as I click on economy, I want you to look here, and I want you to look here at what happens. So now we've moved to where our listing is going to be more in the 25th percentile of the market, and we're down to a 185 base price. This economy property category is really good for you to select if you have a property that doesn't necessarily have amenities. You're really, really trying to get as much booking as possible very, very quickly. You would want to go to amenity as well. Or I said amenity. You're going to want to go to economy as well. The mid-scale is the general rule of thumb. This is going to put you in the 50th percentile, and it's going to let your property kind of dictate where we move with a recommendation later down the line. Upscale here is going to send you to the very high end of the markets. We go to the 75th percentile of the market. This right here, in my opinion, you should only select if you truly have a property that is in the 25th, the top 25 percentile. So that means if you're beachfront, if you have great amenities, if you have pristine amenities and pristine accommodations, then you might want to consider upscale. A majority of folks will want to use this mid-scale version though. So you can also see here, we've got a bunch of other bedrooms as well. We've got 90 listings in 1 bedroom. You can see all those plotted here. If I click on studios, you'll see additional ones get plotted on there, and you'll also see how that changes the market base price. So you've got the studios. You can add 2 bedrooms in as well if you want to get just a full overall view. But with this being a 1-bedroom property, we have 90 listings. That is a great a great set of comps for us to look at right there. So I'm good with sticking with this 1-bedroom. I do think it's kind of mid-scale, so I'm going to go here, hit confirm base price. It says the new base price has to be different, so we're just going to go with that. I'm going to hit save and refresh, and now all of our rates are going to be updated based off of that base price. Now, I haven't put in a minimum yet. We're going to come back to that, but first I want us to understand how we can look at this base price and potentially change it around if you need to. So I'm in Miami. I know I'm coming up on some really nice big events. So I'm going to go see how those are priced. Independence Day's at 261. Looks good to me. I feel comfortable with that. Now, this view is only showing you your pricing. What I always suggest, and we're going to go into depth on neighborhood data on Friday, but come into neighborhood data and visualize what it looks like. So we're going to turn some of this noise off for you guys. So now what we can see is within these colors, you've got the 25th to 50th percentile. Right there is gray. 50th to 75th percentile is that darker pink. 75th to 90th percentile is that lighter pink. So you can kind of follow along with your black line and see where your rates are at. I'm not going to spend too much more time here. We're going to spend all Friday talking about this neighborhood data area, and I'll help you really understand this. But when you come in here just as a quick hitter, you're wanting to follow along and look at some important dates. I can see my rate over here for January 1st is really high. I can see it's high here as well. Those are things that you want to kind of look for. So we're going to back out of neighborhood data. And I'm going to say I feel pretty good about my base price right here. That is exactly what you want to do. If you looked at that line and you thought that your rates were too high, you can come in and say, let's try that economy base price. So we're at 212 down to 185. Hit confirm base price. And now I'm ready to go. And again, maybe you go in and you look at neighborhood data and it's just not, maybe that brought it too low. Slice it right down the middle, and then you could use that base price help tool and say between those two was about 200. It's perfect for you. Now, for your minimum price, you always want your minimum price to be the bare minimum that you will take for a stay, for a day, on a stay, I should say. If you don't have any idea, if you don't want to go in and do the math and figure out what your exact break even point is, you can use PriceLabs as well. So one suggestion I always like to give people is once you come in and put your base price, we're essentially telling you what we think the lowest we need you to go is. If you look right here at your calendar on that last day. So right here, we're getting down to $73. You could use that as your minimum price if you want to. Obviously, you could also look at market comps, which we'll cover in neighborhood data a little bit more. But the best way for you to get your minimum price is to truly know what the minimum you want to take is and try not to be too restrictive. One general rule of thumb with PriceLabs is for PriceLabs to work optimally, you need at least 20% difference between this base price and this minimum price. So we would want to at least take $36, $37 off of this base price to have a minimum that's going to work well with PriceLabs. So in that situation, we would be at something like I'm just going to say a 125 here. I can hit save and refresh. And what we'll see is these dates right here will update to 125 for you. All right. So on this example, there you go. You've got 125 updated there for you. So that's an example of us going through with a brand new property that doesn't have a recommendation. It doesn't have an imported price. I'm going to back out now, and we're going to look at a different one. We're going to look at one that has been in PriceLabs and it's been working. It's gotten bookings. You know, we looked at this yesterday. This is that Chicago property. Hit save and refresh real quick so we're updated. On this one in particular, I know for a fact I don't want to go below $75. I have judged that myself. But again, maybe I want to come in and see, you know, what would PriceLabs suggest? I can take that off, hit save and refresh, and let's go look at these rates. Right. So we go down to 65 on that. So that helps me understand, like, okay, if I've got the threshold to go down 10 extra dollars, PriceLabs suggests that maybe I can get this booked up. You can look at it that way. So we're going to leave it at 75 though. I've got my base price at 115. Still want to come in and do this help me choose a base price. We talk about doing this roughly every 2 weeks. And the reason for that, if you look right down here, notice we've got this recommended up here. Your recommendations come in about every 2 weeks. So PriceLabs every so often is looking at your rates, looking at your occupancy, looking at that base price and saying, based on your performance recently, we want you to adjust your base price. So we can see overall in the market, 120 is that midpoint for the market-based price. But because of how I've performed, I have a recommendation of 115. Now, one caveat about the listing that I'm looking at right here, previous recommendation had me to go even further down. So I was at like a 110. Now this recommendation had me bump up. I've already accepted that recommendation. That's why it's at that base price. But this is the most simple thing that you can use, following along with this recommendation and making sure that you're adjusting as you need to. Now, on this recommendation, anytime that you are here at your pricing dashboard, and if you see a light bulb sitting next to these base prices or these minimum prices or the maximum price if you have that in there, that's an indication that PriceLabs thinks you need to adjust by at least 10% or so. So I'm sorry, Karishma, you may want to correct me on that one. It may be between 5 and 10%, but we're going to draw your attention to it if it hits that threshold. If you still need to adjust it and it's not quite that much, you're not going to have that icon right there to hit it. So we do want you to come in and periodically check review prices, hit save and refresh before you get in here. Always like that. That way it pulls in the most recent information from your PMS or your OTA, just as a good rule of thumb. And now we can come in and do help me choose a base price. So here's an example of one that I have not looked at recently. My base price is $156. I have not been performing well. I have not been getting booked up. To be totally honest with this one, I haven't put anything into this property. So why would anybody come here, so to speak? So I've got a recommendation, 153. Not a huge move, but that recommendation came on May 25th right there. Hit confirm base price, and I'm ready to go. This is, and what I want you to really take away from today is this help me choose a base price tool is one of the best tools in revenue management. What we're trying to do is make it to where you have a simple number and you don't have to worry about the seasonality and the demand and all of that extra stuff that PriceLabs is worrying about for you. We want you to have a simple number that you can select and move occasionally. That way we can go in and apply what we do. So when we talk about applying what we do, again, we talked about this yesterday. You can come and hover over a number and see how we're calculating it. But essentially, you pick that base price, then we apply seasonality. So seasonally, the end of May in Knoxville, Tennessee, where this property is not very good. It's okay. We've got some good baseball, nice weather, some lakes around us. So there's just a smidge of seasonality added. But this particular weekend has really high demand compared to last year. So we're spiking it up slightly. Again, you can see, though, we have some customizations to kind of bring that back down to reality for you. So I want you to understand, we want to be able to trust this base price. And as you can see, 153, that day it's at 152. But down here where we have less demand, we're at 107. As you get further out, that 153 still gets you those higher rates that you're looking for. We go out here into college football season, that 153 is still driving me to get a really great rate for when the University of Tennessee Volunteers play on that particular date. Sorry for my Roll Tide and Auburn fans. I had to give another UT shout out though. So anyways, with that, we've kind of hit the base price. We've hit the minimum prices. Now we're going to the questions. So if you have any other questions, please throw them in right now. I'm going to start up top and just kind of work through these with you. And then we can feed off of that and see how everything goes. So is there an option for by the room base price? Not 100% sure what you're referencing to, Brent. I think what you might be asking for is like if you had a apartment and had multiple doors. If you care to clarify and put another Q&A in there for me, I would appreciate that. All right, next one. If I create a detailed comp list in the market dashboard, how much more or less reliable will my assessment be versus the tool to help me choose a base price? That's a really good question, Sean. That's a pretty high level question. So what I would honestly say is the best thing for you to do is use that base price help tool. If you have a detailed comp list and because you're mentioning this, I don't want to get too deep into it with everybody else. Reach out to support@pricelabs.co, and one of our teammates will help you figure out which one's the best one to use. It's hard for me to give that example or to give an answer without actually seeing what's built out for me. All right, I see lots of stuff coming in the chat, guys. Please, if you are putting questions in the chat, can't see them, they won't get answered. Please put them in the Q&A instead. Thank you. Jeff says, when I look at help me choose a base price, I'm not seeing economy, mid-range, etc. I'm also not able to choose one bedroom studio. That's a very, very simple fix for you. If you go in there, you can click on those boxes. It probably just needs to be dropped down for you. All right. Camilo says, yesterday I attended a webinar led by Airbnb management expert. Lost my thing. They mentioned the importance of using discounts on the platform, such as last minute or length of stay discounts. That being said, wouldn't it be better to set those discounts directly on Airbnb instead of through PriceLabs? You can use those on there if you truly think that the strikeout pricing is something that is advantageous to you. You can set those up on directly on Airbnb. Generally speaking, just for the audience that we've got right here, we do want to try to keep everything in one area with PriceLabs. So that is going to be our suggestion. If you're a more advanced user and you can understand and control things, then potentially setting it up on Airbnb can be beneficial for you so that you get that strikeout. But again, until you're advanced and can understand where everything kind of sets, we don't want to suggest that for you. Right. If a listing has a living room equipped with a sofa bed or a convertible sofa suitable for sleeping, does PriceLabs consider this living room an additional bedroom when calculating capacity or adjusting price strategies, or is it treated differently from a dedicated bedroom? We do not factor anything in when it comes to a convertible sofa. Personally, depending on the market, I don't know that a convertible sofa has too much of an impact regardless. But if you feel that it does add to you, that's one of the good things about that base price help tool. So if you have a one bedroom, your convertible sofa you think adds a really good lift for you, then you can go in there and select the one bedrooms and the two bedrooms and get that little bit of a bump in there. That would probably be the best thing for you, David, to look at those convertible sofas and try to maximize that for you. Right. Deborah, based on what you said yesterday, if I have all-inclusive rates, I should use the offset function. Can you talk about this a little during Q&A to help us understand when we should and shouldn't be using it? Deborah, unfortunately, we're not going to be talking about the offset function. That is something that's a little bit more advanced. Again, if you have any questions about it, hit that little question mark down on the bottom right on PriceLabs, type in offsets, and you'll get a little bit more information there for it. If you have further questions, just because I don't want to put too much information on this video, please reach out to support@pricelabs.co and somebody will help you. In our market, we have 50% maximum occupancy. I see questions coming into the chat. Can't respond to you. I'm so sorry about that. In our market, we have 50% maximum occupancy. What would be the parameter to maximize my revenue overall? All else being equal. One problem is that if I do it by high pricing, I will have dissatisfied clients. Marty, that's a pretty specific question. I would like to know more about your market before I gave an answer to such a large audience. So if you don't mind, reach out to support@pricelabs.co and we can actually kind of look at your account. Not me, but somebody on our team will look at your account and give you something more specific, a better specific answer. All right. Chanel says, what if my minimum is higher than the recommended minimum? Does that mean I won't get bookings? That's a really good question. It's not that you won't get bookings, you won't get as much activity and you won't have as much impact from using a dynamic pricing tool. So if you have a minimum that is really, really high, it's hard for us to price accordingly for you. And it's really going to have a lot of your rates just being right there at the bottom. Unfortunately, if you have a really high minimum, that impacts you heavily on OTAs as well. So like if you had, let's say, a $500 minimum, Airbnb sees that your property should be around like 350 to 300 to get booked, it's going to hurt you in the overall metrics and ultimately in your conversion as well. So if at all possible, I would say look at potentially bringing that minimum back and not having such a high minimum and potentially having a little bit further or a little bit longer minimum length of stay in that situation. So maybe instead of going for like 500, you go for 400, but make them take 4 nights instead of 3. Uh, After setting the base price, is there a way to know the expected revenue for a specific month? That is a great question, Mohammed. We are currently trying to really work on forecasting and making that available for you at the forefront. It's not something that's going to be available in product right now, but we are working on that. I would say there is no way right now to know your expected revenue specifically, just because we don't know the exact time that people will be booked. We try to get the rate optimized for you each day so that it can be booked if possible. But again, we may try to get you a rate 2 weeks, not get it, and then we just can't really present that to you perfectly right now. But it is something that we're developing and can hopefully get you some really good revenue projections here coming soon. All right. How can I change my property type after I've set my base price? Um, John, I think what you're asking is inside of the base price help. All you would need to do is click back and forth. The property type isn't going to be as impactful. Um, we can't really select the property type in there. I think what you're talking about is that property category, though. If you're talking about me being able to select whether I have an apartment or a single family home, that's not something that you actually select in the tool. If I have parent and child listings, the recommendation comes from only the parent listing occupancy. Antonis, that is a great question. Knowing the exact setup, if it's mapped properly, it should have equal occupancy. So if it's something where you have like a large property and it's broken down into multiple, you should have the same occupancy because your calendar, your everything else should kind of sorry, I got thrown off by the question in there. Um, I totally lost my train of thought. But basically, what you should have if you have mapped it correctly and everything is set up in your property management system or on Airbnb correctly, is that those should match. There shouldn't be a discrepancy between your occupancy unless they are two completely separate listings. So if you do see a discrepancy in your occupancy, either first thing, hit save and refresh on all of them. And then the second one that you should do is reach out to support at PriceLabs.co. We've got a few more minutes for some questions. Uh, I do see Brent's question in the chat. It says, is it bad if I go too low in your price? That's going to be, kind of a choice for you, honestly. Um, Obviously, you don't want to go below what you're capable of making. You don't want to get the wrong type of guests in there. You don't want to have parties and things like that. But generally speaking, you want to make sure that you're getting a really good, get you a good rate, so to speak. Uh, Michael says, is there an auto-confirm base price option? That's a good question. At this point in time, there is not. Gotcha, Brent. Thank you, man. Yassine, for one of my downtown listings, there's a very big difference between recommended and market-based mid-scale. Other listings are not far off between market-based and recommended. Yassine, if you will reach out to support at PriceLabs.co if there's a big discrepancy between your recommended and market-based, that generally is going to say that your listing is performing very poorly, and you may have some type of a setting that needs to be looked at as well. Let's get a few more in here. Maria, how can I look at the property category? Economy high end for an existing property. When you go into the market-based, if you are not seeing those different options for you, just click in where it says property category or the bedroom size. It will expand it for you, and then you'll have those buttons available for you. Is there a report we can generate to view historical base price data? Julie, that is a great question, and one that I am going to hop over here and share my screen for again real quick. So when you are in your listings, and hopefully you all can see my calendar. So right over here on the right, we talked about you've got your events and holidays. You also have a base price history right here. So anytime you want to see what you've done with your base price, you can hit right there and you'll see all of your changes. Let's ignore all the stuff that you see on mine because this is just a demo account, but that's where you're going to go right over here to see that. Stop that share. I hit a few more questions and then we will call it a day, folks. And I do appreciate y'all joining us. Tomorrow, we're going to be covering minimum stays. We've got a really cool new feature that's getting ready to come out to everybody. It's here for us. I'll show it to you, but minimum stays is going to be awesome. Friday, I think, will be the most impactful day for us out of all of them. I'm so excited to show you all neighborhood data and really get you in tune with that. There's so much good information that can really help you all out. So please make sure you stay tuned in. If you weren't here at the end of yesterday, please keep in mind you need to attend all 5 days, but we will do a couple of live account reviews on Monday of next week, kind of as a bow on it. So if you've attended all 5 days and you want one of those account reviews on Friday, we'll ask for a couple people and then we'll select randomly as well. So, all right. Let's take a look down here. Is there a report we can generate to view historical base price data? That's one I already answered. How often should base price recommendations be implemented? I would say go in and observe them every 2 weeks. If it makes sense to you, if they're, if you know by looking at your metrics that you haven't been booked in the past 15 days, 100% accept that. If it's just, a suggestion to go down 1 or 2, maybe you don't have to worry about it, but generally speaking, every 2 weeks or so. All right. Sean, I really don't think that this machine will do a better job than a market analysis using all the filters and analysis that is possible using the market dashboard and custom comp sets. Why would generic bedroom count only rates be better? I'm trying to think of, I think this is in reference to the market dashboard question as well. So generally speaking, with this base price that we're looking at, it is not necessarily taking in everything. So we are looking at the averages more so than anything. And when you look at the market dashboard and have one of those and try to come up with a base price off of it, you're going off of what their strategy is to an extent, if that makes sense. So with the base price, we're taking essentially average results of what we see in the market, very narrowed at a hyper-local area, making that work with our algorithm. So the algorithm is the main piece of what it is that's going to be driving that revenue and helping you get that occupancy curve and everything like that. Hopefully that helps explain that. Hey, let's see. Graham. Okay, Graham says, I have a converted chapel in the countryside in southwest England. It has 5 bedrooms but sleeps 18 people. How do I find comparable properties, e.g., compare with 9-bedroom properties? It's a really good question, Graham. In situations like that, if you have a extreme use case where there's just not a comp in there, reach out to support@pricelabs.co. Let us know this exact question that you have in there, and our data team can look on the back end and try to help pull in some additional information or potentially spread it out a little bit further for you. That is not something that we do on usual use cases. So please, if you're in, a Florida market or something like that, don't reach out asking for extra, spread it out or anything like that. But if you have a incredibly unique use case, you can reach out to us and we can try to help you find some extra information and make it a little bit more usable for you, so to speak. All right, we're going to hit a couple more and then we'll call it a day. If you have a living room with sofa bed, is it considered an extra bed? Okay, we had that question already. That is not considered an extra bedroom. If you feel that it adds value like an extra bedroom, that is something that you can make the choice of. I would just not suggest a sofa bed being included as an extra bedroom. Think about it. There's not the same privacy. There's a lot missing when you just have a sofa bed, so to speak. How often do you review your prices? I have 4 townhomes in the same building in the Smoky Mountains. Well, Miss Lisa, hello. I'm happy to see I got some Smoky folks in here as well. But basically the best thing that you can do is review these every 2 weeks or so. You don't want to go in and put a ton of customizations. You don't want to go in and micromanage it too much. You want to focus on that base price and you want to see if there's anything that is missed, like if you miss a week or something like that and you don't get booked, kind of make note of that and then potentially go in and say, okay, for this next week, let me get ahead of it and we'll talk about date specific overrides at a later time. But that's another thing that you can do to kind of help yourself generate a little bit of extra as well. Last one, Sheila, how do I choose economy or mid? Again, anybody that's having issues with finding those, click inside of it and it will take you down to it. And now this next one, we are going to hit up. If I'm currently getting a 4.7 rating in value after reviews, I have 5 stars in every other category. How can I use PriceLabs to make sure I'm pricing correctly to get a better score in value? Unfortunately, Irie, that is a fantastic question. And it's something that our base price help tool is currently being worked on. We're going to be releasing here pretty soon some additional things inside of there where we're going to be looking at the quality of your listings, the review scores, the ratings, and things like that. But for now, there's not really a way that a dynamic pricing tool can help you control that value, so to speak, because the value is perceived by the guest. And it's also a combination of the price and the property that they have. So you could technically go in there and say, okay, I'm not gonna let my place get rented out for more than $250, but it's still somebody's opinion, so to speak. So it's really hard to say that. There's not anything PriceLabs can necessarily do with that, other than, if you wanted to go in and maybe put some caps on there to keep it from getting outside of a range that's going to get you out of that, or get you a 5-star booking. But anyways, folks, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Any question that I didn't get to today, our team will reach out to you and respond. We're also going to be working on getting all of those videos sent out to you. Any questions that you have, please tomorrow put them in the Q&A as soon as you get in there if you want to. That way you can make sure that I get to them. I do appreciate everybody joining us. We'll see you tomorrow, and thank you again.